Shalom again. I kind of want to discuss the translation of the New World Translation. This is a translation that only the Jehovah's Witnesses use. And if you haven't already, please go watch my other video pertaining to the proper name of the Almighty, which is Yahweh. I call him Yahweh because it is factually and most accepted that the Tetragrammaton is Yahweh and not Jehovah, especially since the Hebrew language doesn't have any J's in it. I'm going to show you a list here. Now there is, and I'm going to post the link to this on in the description panel underneath this video. Jehovah's Witnesses. I want you to really consider. I know you study Scripture. I believe that's something that you're very zealous for, and that's admirable to me. Because I am also very into reading Scripture. I really want to know what it actually says. That's why I have books. Let me show you this book here. Hope you can see that. This book is called the Hebrew Yeshua versus the Greek Jesus. The author's name is Nehemiah Gordon. He is a Karaite Jew, which means he's a scripturalist. He's also one who is responsible for translating and researching and looking into the Dead Sea Scrolls. So he's very highly recommended. I recommend this book. You can find it probably on A Rude Awakening, ROOD.TV. I'll put this link in the description also. But they've discovered, I think the number's rising now, but they've discovered a number of scrolls that the book of Matthew or Matisyahu was written in that predate the Greek, and there's actually now more evidence that the Greek is actually a third translation from, it kind of went, it was first written in Hebrew, then Aramaic, and then Greek. And it shows a lot of points that a lot of scripture was changed throughout these three translations. When you look at the Hebrew, things are a lot more clear. With that said, I want to encourage you guys to take a look at that book and see just how many errors that our English translations today have, and why it's so important to look into the Greek and the Hebrew. Let's get back to the New World Translation. The Jehovah's Witnesses read the New World Translation and another translation, which I'm not too into at the moment. The New World Translation Committee. There were, let's see here, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let me just show you the list. If you look here, the NASB, the New American Standard Bible, was produced by a diverse team of 40 translators, each with earned doctorates in the field of biblical studies. Now, I'm not going to read all these names, but as I scroll down, you will see every single one of these 40 people have doctor before their name. To my understanding, if you're going to get doctor added to your name, it's going to take you 8 years of studies, and that's a very big deal. Now, if you look over here, the New World Translation Committee consisted of 4 members of the Jehovah's Witness religious sect. Their names and scholarly qualifications are as follows. And I'm going to read this. Nathan Knorr, Knorr, I'll just call him Nathan, president of the Watchtower Society, has no academic training in any biblical language. Fred Franz, no academic degree in any biblical language, though he did study Greek for 2 years at the University of Cincinnati. 2 versus 8 years. No brainer there. Albert Schroeder, no academic training in any biblical language. And George Genghis, no academic training in any biblical language. Now, I've studied New World Translation versus, other translations, like, King James Version, NIV, New International Version, and the Hebrew and the Greek. And it's really, I'll just be honest, guys, I'm really embarrassed for the New World Translation Committee, because I don't know what brought them to want to change Scripture so much, but there's so much to it that is wrong and is inaccurate. And there's some cases where I think I see their reasoning for changing certain things, like they changed the cross to a torture stake, and the word, I think it does mean both, but history, because of history, especially first century historians, we know that Yeshua was crucified on a cross because the Roman Empire were very avid about worshiping their sun god Mithra, whose symbol was the cross. So of course they would have used a cross. And not only that, but the first century historians make mention that he hung on a crux, crux, which is where two lines like that basically meet at a certain point. That's a crux, and so on. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But my point is, let's take Revelation 1:8. It says, "I am the Almighty," says Jehovah in the New World Translation. Now, once I looked in the Greek, the word that they translated it from into Jehovah, the word is kairos. In Greek, that means Lord. There's another verse in the New Testament, or the Brit Hadashah in Hebrew, which says Yeshua is kairos. Now, if they're going to translate kairos in Revelation 1:8 just to cover up that Yeshua isn't speaking this, then they should take heart to the fact that if kairos is Jehovah, wouldn't Yeshua be saying, or wouldn't that statement be Yeshua is Jehovah? And let me tell you why this is such a big deal, is because Scripture itself says, do not add to or take away, do not take from these words. It is a very big deal. And, I dare say it's equally as important not to even change words. Now, and I'm going to read this. This is from another website. The reason I'm going to read this is another concern. Now, Watchtower Society will never admit this, which is fine because whatever. But you may or may not heard of Johannes Gribber. I think that's how you pronounce that. He is responsible for the John chapter 1 verse 1 issue, and this can also be found on I don't know what page, but if you look in the 1965 edition of the Kingdom Interlinear Translation of the Greek and Hebrew Scriptures, you'll find on John chapter 1 verse 1, if you look very closely, let me just go ahead and say the verse. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's the more accurate translation. Now, the New World Translation will say that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God. Now, the problem with this is they're not translating word when they say a God. The word for word in Greek is logos, which means a God, or simply God. Just, there's a bunch of different variants in the translation. The word for God is theos. Now, to kind of give you an idea of what it's like, in the beginning was logos, and logos was with theos, and logos was theos. Now let's give it more of an English twist on it. In the beginning was a God, and a God was with God, and a God was God. That's the proper order of things. Logos is theos, and they mistranslated theos as a God. It's just simply God. Logos is the a God. Now, this verse, and I'm going to read this to you. The Watchtower Society has appealed to a little-known Bible translation of Johannes Gribber, a former Catholic priest, for support of their a God rendering of John 1:1. Gribber's translation came about through contact with the spirit world. By definition, is necromancy. The Old Testament, there is a law, a command in the Torah that says that you are not consult the spirits of the dead, and this is what is happening here.